Welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show, a Baxter Professional Services production. Welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show, where we're experts in nursing and experts in business. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. The Nurse Shark Academy Show highlights nurse business owners and others in the healthcare field who promote entrepreneurship. We interview nurse leaders and encourage them to tell their story. Today's guest is Dr. Alicia Claircius. On today's episode, how one nurse and realtor integrates opulence into her practice. Nurses, are you ready for more? My mission is for you to own your seat at the table of nurse entrepreneurship, gaining confidence, skills, and the freedom to live your life on your own terms. Assisting you in achieving your goals through tailored advice, continuous learning, and a collaborative approach is at the heart of everything I do. Stop being eaten alive. Come feel the sun. Be a nurse shark. Hello and welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show. The Nurse Shark Academy Show highlights nurse business owners and others in the healthcare field who promote entrepreneurship. We interview nurse leaders and encourage them to tell their story. Today's guest is Alicia Claircius. I got it right, Alicia Claircius. And Dr. Alicia is the owner of Opulent Realty International and Opulent Medical Care Services in Florida and Georgia. So welcome to the show. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, so it's Dr. Alicia Claircius. I do have a Doctor of Nurse practice degree. I graduated from USF. But the two businesses that I do own are Opulent Medical Care, which is a company that helps with telehealth services as well as encompasses medical director. So I'm the medical director of other clinics across the U.S. And also Opulent Realty International is a real estate company, which I'm the broker of and owner. And, we have some agents up under us and we service Florida and Georgia.
Well, that sounds great and wonderful. And we'll be sure to unpack all that in a moment. But I'm going to start with our question that we always start with. What made you become a nurse?
So initially, and it's a little of a sad story, my father passed when I was 15. And it was actually a traumatic death. So I was with him the whole time. I just got my learner's permit to where I could drive. So I ended up driving him to the doctor. And his clonidine was actually too high, his dosage. So when he got out of the car, he was having active seizures. But at the time, I never knew what seizures were because I was only 15. So when he got out of the car, he actually had a seizure and fell straight back and hit his head. So I got to witness all of that. And while he was having a seizure, he was actually having a grand mal seizure where he's foaming out the mouth and everything. He hit his head so hard. But the irony is he was right across the street from the hospital. The EMS took at least 15 minutes to get there, and it was hot. His head was on the pavement. I mean, the pavement was just full of blood. So from that moment on, that really made me want to become a medical professional, and want to be in the medical field. Just seeing him go through all of that, which he was in the hospital for 2 days and then pronounced brain dead. So just seeing all of that, that really made me want to help other people.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, and what a horrible tragedy. But to hear that you were able to turn that tragedy into something positive is very inspirational.
Right. Yeah, just and just taking care of people, like that's what I really love to do. So I started off just as like a CNA working with disabled children in group homes. Mm-hmm. And then from there, from working with disabled children, I started working with disabled adults, and I really started loving the field. So then that's when I went to school, to get the nursing license or a bachelor's, master's, and on up to doctorate.
So tell me, where did you go to school, and what was your inspiration to choose nursing over all the other fields you could have done in healthcare?
Well, I went to school initially at Polk State College here in Polk County. I really wanted to go to the University of Miami because I did spend some time down in Miami and I loved it there. I grew up a lot in Sunny Isles, Florida, but the tuition was just, outrageous and I couldn't afford it at the time. Even though I had scholarships as well, because I was a high achiever in school, but the scholarship still wasn't going to cover the tuition at So, it would essentially cover predominantly most of it at Polk State College. So that's where I went. And then after that, I went to USF to finish up the degree in the master's section. But the true reason, inspiration, was my father, and also just seeing, that I would be able to help other people, in the medical field. There's a lot of people that, say they want to get into the medical field, but they really don't, want to help people, and I have that caring heart and aspect. Now, I always knew that since I was a little girl that I've, been like that. So I truly wanted to be in the medical field so that I can help others.
What was your first nursing job out of school?
Oh boy, that's always med surge, right?
Well, for some, it wasn't my case, but yeah, for some, yes.
Yeah, for a lot, I was already prepped that, they said that they sent everybody to med surge floors, and I was already a CNA at the hospital. So I was already working on the med surge floor. So that's essentially what my first job was. I was working on the hospital floor. They call it, it was 3 East West. And I still talk to a lot of those people that, I worked with there, because we were just such a tight knit group. And we knew that we had to be that tight in order to get through the night. So I worked 7P to 7A, the graveyard shifts, they call it.
Yeah.
But I really learned a lot from working at the hospital, during those shifts. And then I ended up switching to day shift. So I switched back and forth, day shift, night shift.
Okay. So, did you spend most of your time in med surge, or did you branch off to any other specialties?
No, I branched off. So I got my experience in trauma as well. So my whole goal was to become a supervisor. And that's what I originally thought. I actually wanted to become the CEO of the hospital. That's what I thought years ago when,
That's what I was doing years ago. Yeah.
when I was a CNA. I said, you know what, I'm going to become the CEO of the hospital. I'm going to work my way up. And I had this whole plan. But as I started working on the floor, I said, I just want to get experience and become, a supervisor and further my career and become my own business owner. So with that, I said, let me get all the experience that I can. So I became a travel nurse as well. So I worked in trauma. I worked in ER. I worked in, of course, med surge, palliative care, observation, a little bit of mother baby. And most people will ask, well, how did you even get to do all of that? I'm not going to lie. I add a little bit extra to my resume because I'm like, if they won't give me the opportunity, I have to give myself the opportunity. I remember applying for a PCU job and I'm like, man, I don't have any PCU experience. How am I ever going to get into trauma? So I actually started studying more. So that's how I made up with that. And I linked with another nurse on the floor and I was truthful with her. I'm like, I don't really have any PCU experience, but when I did get the job, but I said, could you please, help me with some things? And, she kind of took me under her wing. And also I would stay up, beyond the time. I would sleep only like 4 or 5 hours. And the other time I would spend studying about PCU and the machines that we had to, know for the clients. And also I had a business at that time too. I had a cosmetic business. So I was doing lashes while I was trying to learn how to become a PCU nurse and also cardiac. I love cardiac. So it was PCU/cardiac floor. And that's how I was able to, gain some of those opportunities.
So, in essence, you made your own opportunity.
Correct. And that's pretty much what you have to do in this life many times, because when you don't have the experience, you have to create it. I always say when you don't have a seat at the table, you have to create your own table.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, how did you transition then from being the nurse on the floor or whatever to now starting your business and getting into real estate? How did that happen?
So I transitioned when essentially when I got my master's degree and I was pregnant with my third baby. And it was hectic, at the time. My husband, I couldn't even spend a lot of time with him because I had a contract position, and then I just had a baby and I had to go back to work like immediately. He's like, maybe we should, think about other options. And so that's what got me thinking, like, I can't do this forever if I'm going to spend time with my family. And, I have all girls now. I have four beautiful girls. But I'm like, yes, something has to change. So I was still doing the cosmetics on the side, and I changed from cosmetics to med spa since I had a degree, but I still had to have a collaborating physician over me at the time because the autonomous practitioner wasn't into play yet here in Florida. So I had that business, and I was doing cosmetic injections, PDO threads. I was trying to learn, about lasers as well. And I had a lady to teach me about that. Not only that, I was taking trainings, like outside trainings. I would go down to Miami and Naples, and with my family, they would, stay in the hotel while I would go to training schools and learn about how to do, cosmetic injections and everything, because that's what I really wanted to do once I got my master's and doctorate degree, because I said, you know what, I got to transition somehow, instead of being on the floor. So that's how I was able to do some of that, is just really still create my own opportunity, going to outside classes, learning about cosmetics so that I can one day have my own, medical office and still do telehealth. That was in my mind, telehealth, cosmetics, and the other side to that was real estate. So my husband was already in real estate, and he was in real estate for, I believe, a year and a half or 2 years before I got my real estate license. But how I got into that was just seeing how he was in real estate and he had that time freedom. And I said, I used, because we have cameras in our house, and I said, man, they're just over here taking naps while I'm just working hard, working 13, 14-hour shifts. I'm like, I said, something has to give. So one day I was at this contract, job, and I won't mention the name, but they were a verge of like racism. So there were some things going on, and I was the only Black professional, but they would never call me doctor, by the title. They'd always call me the first name. They would make, little racial monkey jokes. And, one day an incident happened to where when I was trying to transition into real estate, I gave out my card to some of the clients that I was certifying. And one of the clients told management there, but I had already asked who I thought was the manager if that was okay. So the people called me and they said, you can't hand out these business cards here. I said, okay, well, that's no problem. They said, well, because you did that, we don't want you here anymore at, this site and location. You're going to have to stay in the office. And that site and location, whether you work 2 hours or 4 hours or the 6 hours, you would get paid for being there for 6 hours. And so that hit me because that was helpful to me since I had the baby. If I were to just stay at the clinic, then I would have to work the full 6 hours to get the pay. So that was a little unfair position, for me, but they had just hired a gentleman on. And that gentleman he was just telling everybody for anything. So that whole situation mess that transpired there, they even thought because I had my own business, even though I was an independent contractor with their business and I had my own business, they thought that I was doing certifications at my business. But what they did was they were spying on me, but they looked at the wrong office because it was similar in names at the time. My business was called Angel Eyes, and there was an Angel Eyes Primary Care, and they looked at his door, and he was certifying people. Right. So they took a picture and everything. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So when I saw that they were doing that and, doing things like that to me, and there was other stuff, I said, you know what? I called my husband that same day and I was crying. I'm like, I said, I don't know what to do because I said, I'm just never the type to quit anything, and I don't like to leave people hanging. And I know it was a family business, so I explained everything to him. He's like, I think it's time to go. I was like, I just really would like to join real estate. And that's how that happened. So that's how I transitioned into real estate and also still had the medical business.
So, and this is something that we do need to get into because as a business owner myself and maintaining a clinical practice as a nurse practitioner, it can be a little bit of a sticky situation because on the one hand, yes, you are working for this company, or you were an independent contractor, so you weren't technically working for the company. Um,
Mhm.
and so having those boundaries in place is important, and letting your employer know that you do not own me. What you do in your own time, as long as you're not in direct competition with them, you're not taking resources from the company to further your own business. What you do in your own time is your business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And there's a fine line, with that. Um, is when you're an independent contractor at a business, technically it's almost like the brokerage that own all the agents are independent contractors. You can't, really essentially tell them what to do, right?
Right.
Because then that's considered an employee status.
Hmm.
So same with that. Even there was no agreement signed as to what I should or shouldn't be doing when I did work with them. And I think that was the first thing too that they probably were missing from the business with anyone. Because even with our agents, we have to have them sign independent contractor agreements. And that and there will outline what you can and can't do. But there was nothing outlined for me as to what I could and couldn't do. So for them saying that, handing out real estate business cards, because they were what I was certifying, they were to relocate to different areas. It's like no one else was covering it. So I saw an opportunity,
Hmm.
so I took that opportunity, and yet I was penalized for something that, I didn't know you can't do, so, and that was okay. And I even told them, I said, if you don't want me doing that, that's perfectly fine. This isn't my business. But just to go as far as to say, you can't even come back up here anymore. I said, you guys, I said, I'm even willing for you to give me a reprimand. This is your business. I understand you didn't like, what was done. I said, I'm a business owner. I understand myself. I said, just give me a reprimand, and, I won't do that anymore. I apologize for that, but that wasn't enough for them. So, in that situation, I just said, that's enough for me.
But having that understanding your values, your worth, and not sticking around where you aren't celebrated, but merely tolerated.
Right.
That's important. I've had similar situations to where there was a disagreement based on ethics, and the company asked me to leave and had to pay me severance. Well, that was fine because they paid me severance, and basically they paid me to start my own business, and look where I am now.
Kudos, kudos.
Yeah. So they paid me to start my own business. I said, this is how God works.
Yes, yes.
He'll
God
take
works
care of his people.
mysteriously. Yes. And that,
So okay, so I was going to say, with your, so you're doing your real estate, but you also have the medical care service. So what is that medical care service?
so with Opulent Medical, initially my business was called Angel Eyes. Like I was, telling you before the show started, I'm transitioning everything. So Angel Eyes, that was actually owned a home care company, and a telehealth company, and it was called Angel Eyes Home Care and Angel Eyes Primary Care. With the Angel Eyes Home Care, the first year that it was open, it did super well. It did over 90,000 within the first year, and we had clients in Ocala, South Florida. I mean, you name it. But it became a lot. And when COVID hit, that's when I wanted to transition mostly to telehealth. So then that's when that came in at. But I said I need to restructure the business. So as I was telling you, I changed the name all to Opulent Medical Care, and I just really want to do telemedicine and telehealth. And why I want to do that is because my children, I want to have more time freedom with them. Because growing up, myself, my mom was working as a CNA, and she spent hours working. You can't get that time back with your children. So for those who have kids, the time, I learned that the time should be spent with them, because all I could remember is my mom working, and she asked me one day as I got older, what was I supposed to do? I still have bills to pay, make sure you guys are taken care of. And I said, really, I would have just wanted the time. However, you could have, got that. So I remembered that I told her that. And so I'm like, man, spending these 12, 13, 14 hours away from my family, I got to create that time freedom. So going back, Opulent Medical Care, that is the telehealth side. And I also um, manage practitioners and nurses who want to start their own clinic in cosmetics. And like I said, if I didn't create that opportunity to where I would take classes myself, I wouldn't be able to manage them and know what to do. So I have 4 clinics currently that I manage in Illinois, Arizona, and Colorado because they have independent practice over there. So and I'm an independent contractor with that company as well. So I manage them, and also the telehealth services I do. I don't do as much telehealth because that takes up a bit of my time to be there. So I do predominantly the management on the cosmetic side.
Okay. Okay. And so, how would someone, if they wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, they can just, call, reach out to me. I'm always an open book with any of the businesses. So I'll start with Opulent Realty. So if they want to get in touch with me with that, then the number for that is 863-323-7778, or they can contact my admin, Samantha, at admin@opulentrealtyint.com. For the medical side, the phone number is 863-944-6977, and they can contact my admin there as well, Ashley, at dr.claircius@yahoo.com. But other than that, I have social media platforms. If they go on Opulence Realty INT, that's my main platform because I'm heavily in real estate, and they can see some of the things that I'm doing there. But my landing page will be drclaircius.com, which is under construction right now. But that landing page will have half medical, half real estate, so that people can find me there and they can book whatever appointments and consultations they want. I also do business consultations, and that will be on there as well.
Okay, wonderful, great. And so our last question, what I always ask is, if you had one piece of advice for a budding entrepreneur, what would it be?
For someone that's just trying to get into becoming an entrepreneur?
Yes, becoming an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm.
I would say just start. There's a lot of people out here that are afraid to start, and when it becomes rough, they're ready to quit. Right? If everybody quit, Jeff Bezos quit. I mean, if everybody quit in the world, you wouldn't have Amazon, you wouldn't have Publixes, you wouldn't have Walmart, you wouldn't have certain medical companies, So keep doing what you're doing. Many times they say, even with marriage, it takes 5 years, and then after that 5 years, you're over that hump, right? So I always tell people that in business, at least get past that 5-year mark, and then things seem to go a little bit smoother. I know it's a headache, and you're probably like, I can't even make it past the first year, but just stick with it, because people are also testing you out there. So if they see that you're into this one day, and then you're into this one day, next day you're doing photography, next day you're baking cakes, next day you're flipping pancakes, they can't follow you when you're doing all of that. If they're similar fields and you're trying to put it together, okay, if you're just changing names. But when you're doing so many different things, trying to put them in the pot, the person won't be able to follow you, which means your following is still going to be small. Once they see that you're in it, and that you're not quitting with it and you're sticking with it, that's when most people tend to follow you and tend to jump on the bandwagon with you as well.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Stick with it. Be consistent. Consistency is key. Well, I want to thank you again, Dr. Alicia, for your time. And I want to thank our listeners at the Nurse Shark Academy show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If you are listening to us on Podbean, we do have our patron account available now. So if you want to hear extra episodes and get extra training and sneak peeks and things that we have in there, become a patron and you get access to the private podcast. And then I also want to thank everyone. And don't forget to join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz, where we talk about nursing and business and help you to get started to launch your business. Thank you and good night. Hey, before you go, exciting news about the Nurse Shark Academy show. The Nurse Shark Academy show has been nominated for a Women in Podcasting Award, so please vote for me. We are nominated in the business category. So go ahead and cast your vote for us for the Women in Business Podcast Award for the Nurse Shark Academy show. And you can vote for us at www.thenursesharkacademy.biz/podcast awards. Thank you for listening to the Nurse Shark Academy show wherever you get your podcasts or watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll know when all of our episodes come out. If you want further information, you can contact us on the nursesharkacademy.biz.